Welcome back. The New York State Assembly has concluded its 2024 legislative session amidst a pressing issue, the state's jail oversight. Despite intense advocacy and community efforts, the Assembly adjourned without passing crucial legislation aimed at addressing the ongoing crises within local jails, notably the notorious Rikers Island Jail Complex. Here now is the lead organizer of Katal Center for Equity, Health, and Justice, Melanie Dominguez. Melanie, thank you so much for joining me.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Now, can you start by giving us a brief overview of your organization and the work that you do?
Absolutely. So, my name is Melanie Dominguez. I am the organizing director here at the Katal Center for Equity, Health, and Justice. And we are a community organization based in Brooklyn, and we do work around ending mass criminalization, mass incarceration, and ending the war on drugs in New York State. And we do this all while building the leadership and organizing capacity of neighborhood residents. And just to dive a little bit more into like what we've been working on right now in New York City, we are one of the groups fighting to shut down Rikers. And as many of you may know, since Mayor Eric Adams took office, at least 31 people have died in city jails, and violence at Rikers is out of control. The mayor has said that he'll close Rikers, but while he's been in office, he's done everything to keep Rikers open, actually. And he's failed to meet almost all of the closure plans and legal deadlines that were set by the city council in 2019. And for instance, the plan requires transferring ownership of land on Rikers Island from the Department of Corrections to the Department of Citywide Administrative Services, but the mayor has neglected to do so. And additionally, a really critical component of shutting down Rikers is reducing the jail population to below 3,300. But because of the mayor's jail first approach to public safety, the jail population has actually increased under his term and is well over 6,300 right now. And that is precisely why, because of the crisis unfolding on Rikers and the mayor's lack of commitment to shutting it down, we have been working on different ways to hold the administration accountable to shutting down Rikers. And so, since the fall of 2022, we have been calling on the federal courts to appoint an independent receiver to take control of Rikers Island to improve the conditions. And additionally, during this legislative session, we were pushing for the legislature to pass a reform that would bolster the State Commission of Correction. This is known as Senate Bill S5877, and it's sponsored by Senator Julia Salazar. And in the Assembly, it is known as Bill number 85709, sponsored by Assembly Member Emily Gallagher. And just to kind of give more context, the State Commission of Correction actually has constitutional authority as an independent state body to mandate and ensure that correctional facilities across the state, which includes both state prisons and local jails, are a safe, stable, and inhumane conditions. The SCOC has a wide-ranging powers to hold the correctional facilities in compliance, and this includes conducting inspections, obtaining information from correctional staff, examining correctional department documentation and medical records, and they can also issue subpoenas. And one big component as well is that they have the power to shut down facilities that are found to not be protecting the constitutional rights of those being detained in city jails and local jails and state prisons. And for example, in 2018, the SCOC actually released a report about the worst jails in the state, and Rikers was at the top of the list with severe leadership failures and a host of regulatory violations and seriously unsafe conditions for people that are detained at Rikers and staff.
I
And
definitely, I'm so sorry. I want to kind of highlight Rikers for a minute because I understand this has been so many people, have had concerns about this institution. Can you just elaborate on the specific issues jails like Rikers are facing and what the people there are actually going through?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that right now is happening on Rikers Island is that a huge majority of the people that are being detained at Rikers have a mental illness. And many members at Katal who have a loved one that has been incarcerated at Rikers or they themselves have been incarcerated continue to tell us that their medical needs are not being met. And so if you have a mental illness at Rikers, there isn't proper and meaningful care for that specific mental illness. And we've also gotten reports from our members that the hygienic conditions are horrific. They don't have access to clean bathrooms, they don't have access to clean clothes. And we've also had members who have experienced brutality at the hands of correctional officers, where one of our members actually testified at the most recent city council hearing around mental health and an oversight hearing of the Department of Corrections budget, where she stated that her loved one, her son, was beaten by a correctional officer for simply asking for medical help because they were not feeling well. And so these are the things that continue to happen inside Rikers Island. And like I said, violence is out of control. People are simply dying. And so everybody that's being detained at Rikers is at risk of losing their lives. And it goes both ways. It's not safe for the people being detained and for the staff. And so that is precisely why, like, we've been pushing for the mayor to shut down Rikers. But until that happens, we need to make sure that people are not dying and that people are in humane conditions. And so that is why we were pushing for the state bill to increase oversight of Rikers Island. And sadly, this state bill did not make it out of this legislative session. The New York State was able to pass the bill late last week, but the assembly, even though the bill moved out of numerous committees, the clock ran out and they were unable to vote on this bill at the assembly floor. And so we're going to continue to push for the legislature to pass this much needed reform either in a special session this summer or at the next legislative session. However, because the conditions are so dire at Rikers Island, we have no time to waste. And that is why we want to continue to keep the pressure up at the city council level to pass Resolution 183, which is calling on the federal courts to appoint an independent receiver to take control of Rikers Island, to improve conditions and to save lives. And so for anybody that is tuning in on this call, we ask that you please reach out to your city council representatives to pass this resolution. And we also ask that you sign a petition online to tell the mayor that he needs to shut down Rikers. And you can find this at shutrikers.org.
Now, what has been the response from the community following the Assembly's failure to pass the bill? And this is for, just community members, advocates. What have people been saying in response to that?
Yeah, everybody is extremely heartbroken because we actually, in the last 2 weeks of the legislative session, we went up with our members and we had lobby days so that they can meet with their elected officials, and we were doing legislative drop-ins. And when our members found out about the bill not moving, they were completely heartbroken because some of our members have loved ones that are currently being detained at Rikers Island and they fear for their lives. There's a lot of mothers that are deeply concerned, parents that are concerned about their kids being the next person in line to die within the Department of Corrections in New York City. And so, everybody's feeling the desperation because of how dire the conditions are. And right now, like I said, we don't have any time to waste. We cannot have more people dying, and we need to shut down this facility immediately, this jail complex.
Now, given the setback, what are Katal's next steps to ensure that the issues in New York's jails are addressed?
Absolutely. And so, like I mentioned, we're going to focus on making sure that the city council passes resolution 183. And we're going to be doing shut Rikers phone zaps, where we're going to be hosting folks so that we can call and put pressure on the city council to get more co-sponsors for this resolution. And another really important date that everybody should be on the lookout for is the next status conference hearing that the federal courts are holding around the case for receivership, which is on July 9th. It's a Tuesday. We're going to be out there holding a rally to keep the pressure up. And so we ask that folks join us as well. And if you have any questions, you're welcome to reach out to us. My number is 516-588-0127. So folks can give me a call or text me, and we'll loop you into this work, because it's going to really, really take all of us to hold this administration accountable and keep the pressure up to make sure that Rikers Island is shut down.
Now, I think another core part of this work is education and educating people on what's actually happening. Because for a very long time, many people just figured, oh, if people are in jail, they did something to be there, and just kind of, just ignore the issue at hand. Can you just talk about the importance of educating the community on the horrors and the realities that are happening at places like Rikers?
Absolutely. It's really, really crucial. We've actually at Katal been doing canvassing sessions for the past 2 years where we're going into different neighborhoods in the community to have these conversations about what is actually happening at Rikers Island. And, a lot of the individuals that are being held at Rikers are being held pre-trial. They haven't been convicted of anything, but are simply waiting for their day in court to see where things are going. But in the meantime, they're being exposed to these horrific conditions that no human being should be exposed to, no matter what. And so, yeah, it's really, really crucial to make sure that the community is aware of what is going on, but also understand the meaningful ways in which that they can plug in to join the fight. And so, it's one of those things like you don't, it's just a stain in our society that we have a jail complex like Rikers Island where it's in complete violation of human rights. And we really need to make sure that we are aware of what is going on, that we ask the right questions and just really, really take the time to be considerate for a fellow human being's lives.
And with that, I understand that there are some people, again, education is so important, but there are some people who may be on the opposing side who probably just don't feel as connected to this fight. What do you say to those people who, maybe think that, some of these people going to jail deserve to be there, or that it's not their place to kind of step in if if this is what the law has in place. What do you say to people who believe that?
Yeah, that's a great question. We come across folks on that spectrum as well all the time. And one of the things that we make sure that they understand is that we are currently living in a community in New York City where we have a mayor that is not prioritizing the care of our communities. And so when we talk about shutting down Rikers, we also need to talk about investing in real public safety, making sure that community needs are being met. And this looks like investing in housing, healthcare, education, and jobs. And whoever you have a conversation with, they're concerned about affordable housing. They're concerned about paying the bills. They're concerned about bringing food at the table. They're concerned about folks that they're seeing in New York City who have a mental illness, who are experiencing homelessness. And so all of these things are so deeply connected because if we have a mayor and a city that prioritizes taking care of our communities, then we wouldn't be dependent on the carceral system in the first place. Carceral system is just a bandage to the social problems that actually exist in our societies. And so we need to make sure that our communities are being taken care of. And that's just not happening. And so, if you're on that side, like you have something at stake here. It costs $500,000 to incarcerate one person for per year at Rikers Island. And when alternatives to incarceration is much cheaper, when making sure that people's needs are being met is much, much cheaper. But it's just a matter of like where our mayor's priorities are. And we really need to make sure that we're all pushing him to make sure that he's investing in things that we so desperately need in our communities across New York City. And so that's what I would say.
Now, how does the situation in New York compare to jail oversight and reform efforts in other states?
Yeah, so actually, Rikers Island, like I mentioned earlier, in 2018, the State Commission of Corrections released a report where they marked Rikers to be the worst jail in New York State, and that has stayed the same until now. And so Rikers Island is among one of the worst jails in New York State, and so this is a big, big thing as well because everybody in New York State has to be considerate and prioritize the shutting down of this facility because it's going to have a trickling effect on the other local jails across the state that also are failing to keep people safe that are being detained in those jails. And you have jails across Buffalo, like you name it, Erie County. All of these are places in which people are experiencing inhumane conditions as well. And so we want to start somewhere and like have that be the benchmark for what comes next.
Now, are there any specific lawmakers or organizations, groups that you're working with to reintroduce and push this bill forward?
So, as of right now, we've been organizing with our members, but we have a sign-on list that of about 10 to 20 groups that have signed on in support of this bill, whereas the resolution, we have close to 50 groups that have signed on in support, asking for the federal courts to appoint an independent receiver. And much of the groups that have come out in support have been the Bronx Defender, have been Vera Institute, a lot of these big heart hitters. And I'd be happy to share that list so that y'all can circulate it if possible.
Now, I definitely want to highlight that this has been a long standing issue for our city, as you mentioned. Why do you think this is a challenge that we are struggling to overcome?
That's right. And I'm sorry, but the internet kind of went out, so I don't know if you asked me a question.
Oh, okay. I can repeat that. So this has been a long-standing issue for our community, especially here in the city, as you mentioned. Why do you think that this has been, such a challenge for our city to overcome?
Yeah, that's a real big question. I think that's really what has fueled at Katal our work around making sure that we are organizing. We need to make sure that our communities are strong because we win when we're strong. And so that, I mentioned for the past 2 years, we've been door knocking, we've been tabling, we've been doing outreach in all of the boroughs across New York City to build a strong community that can hold this administration accountable. And so that it really just comes down to community organizing and building people power. And so sustaining that is really going to make sure that we can keep the administration accountable no matter who is in office and keep that going, right? And so that has been a huge focus for us right now, just building a strong community.
Well, Melanie, I want to thank you so much for joining us and educating our community.
I appreciate it. I appreciate you for taking the time to listen to what we've been working on. It's a really, really important issue. And like I said, it's going to take all of us. So thank you.
Thank you. We have to take a quick break. We'll be back right after this.